I'm going to be teaching you my in-game settings for the 2023 F1 esports season, covering camera angle, graphics settings, audio settings, and everything in between. I must say early on though, is I will not be showing my performance related settings, i.e. force feedback or in-car setups. After the season is completed, I will consider doing a follow-up video and going more into detail about the performance-related settings that can be the force feedback or more in-depth towards the game. The reason for this is of course, it is my job, and I need to be performing at the highest level possible during the F1 esports season, and to do that, the performance-related settings are very, very critical, naturally, in a field of competition that is so tight. With that being said though, let's get on to the first setting, and the first setting today is going to be the camera angle, what I'm going to be showing you. I'm using the offset T-cam. The reason for that is it gives me a better ability to zoom in the car and have a better focus to the track. I'm using -20 on the field of view, as small as possible. The reason for this is that if I go to 0, you can see that when I zoom out, I have much more view of the world, but when I go to -20, I have a really zoomed up picture of the track and allows me a better ability to see what's happening with the road ahead of me. The lateral view is just basically the left and right of the camera setting, so does not matter really too much, but for my own preference, I like the camera to be in the middle of the car, so I keep it on -12. The horizon is basically where the camera can move forward or back. I like to keep it in -7, and this way the delta stays in the steering wheel at the very bottom of the screen, and I can use it as for a reference when driving. Only in qualifying do you get the delta time at the top right of the screen, and in the race I find it personally to be quite useful to have that delta as well, to compare if it's in transitioning conditions especially. The same logic goes with the vertical, is I like to keep it at 9, this way I can keep the delta in the steering wheel view, and the angle is pointed to -5 as well for the same reason. Near clip plane is basically how far the render distance of the road will be rendering ahead of you, and going to -20 you'll have the least render distance, and going to +20 you'll have the furthest render distance, and this can help with picking out marker boards down the track, and especially on a high speed circuit such as Monza, this can make a bigger and bigger difference. Camera shake is set to 0, purely because I don't want the camera to be moving around in the braking zone, in the acceleration zone, and I want the camera to be as stable as possible to give me the best chance of hitting my braking point as accurately as I can humanly do it. With that being said though, that is my T-Pod offset settings, and now this is what I use for T-Pod normal. If I was to be using it, feel free to take a screenshot of these settings, and this is what I would be using in cockpit camera if I was using it as well. So like I say, be sure to take a screenshot if you would be liking to use these settings. But as I say, I drive in the offset T-cam position. Worth noting, of course, all assists are turned off, and my on-screen settings are like this at the moment, and I'll be using the OSD customization, and you can see I like to keep the timer in the top left for my track position far left as possible to open up as much of the space on the screen as I can do. I have made the lap timer a little bit smaller for the same reason as the top left. I like to keep my screen as open as possible to view the apexes, and you can see I have reduced this down to a 76% scale, what was originally at 100. And the same goes for pretty much every scale on the screen, and the most notable change on my overall layout is definitely going to be, just need to find the right button. My overall biggest change is definitely my gear indicator. I have moved it from the very bottom of the screen and to sit just below the halo, and the reason for that is it sits much better in my eye line, so when I'm driving I can have the ability to see it a lot more clearly and a lot better as well. For where I'm sitting, it is literally at my eye line, so it's much easier to make a reference point of the gear, the ERS, the RPM I'm using as well, and occasionally checking my throttle and brake overlays to make sure that my pedals have not stuck on with either input. That is very critical, as sometimes the pedals can stick on, so be sure to take a screenshot of these settings as well. Going into my graphic settings, I am using everything on ultra low as possible. Of course, ray tracing quality has to stay to medium. That's the lowest setting in the PC build of the game. But everything is being set to low, apart from, I do not know how to pronounce this word, but this is on. And we also have NVIDIA Reflex that is turned on, and basically this can help just lower your refresh rate, and it can help lower your response time of the game and make your steering inputs more in tune with what you're actually doing in real life. Audio settings, one of the most underrated settings in the game. I use master volume 6, 10, 10, 4, 2, 10. With the driver mix, the onboard mix set to driver. Speaker type does not matter because I don't use them, I just use the headset. Engineer ducking is turned off, and basically what this is if you have this turned on, so light or heavy, it will make the engine quieter so you can hear your race engineer better. I don't want this. I want to always have a clear audio of what the car is doing, so I like to keep that off and play audio when the game is in the background. Again, is turned off, so I don't need it. Audio simulation quality is set to high. I can use ultra high, but I've often found that sometimes I can get some screen freezes and screen tearing, and it can affect the performance of the game, so I like to keep it to high instead of ultra high and keep a little bit of safety net involved in there. I have mute by default turned on, because when you're league racing or doing competitive racing, you don't know if other people have their mics muted, and it could be quite annoying that if you're on a flying lap in qualifying or racing for top position in the race, or any position for that being said, and to hear someone else start talking over the microphone can be very distracting, so I like to have that turned off by default. My upshift tone is turned off, and that is purely just because it's quite annoying to hear. I like just to do it by the RPM of the game. The formation lap parking sensor is turned on, as this can just give a little bit of assist to make sure you park up in exactly the right spot, and it sounds quite satisfying when you do it, to be honest. I have my radio set to responses only. I do not like it when the in-game engineer starts speaking over me, or starts speaking on a qualifying lap, or telling me something that I don't actually really care about learning or knowing about. So yeah, I have it set to responses only, and I know and I can trust that the game will only speak to me when I want to be spoken to, and it will not become a distracting thing for me. Replay music is turned off, just so I can make YouTube videos better without having to have the replay music. And this is turned off. Music type theme, as it basically stops copyright if I'm streaming in the main menu of the game. So that being said, that is going to be my audio settings. These have been my settings for the 2023 F1 Esports season. Of course, as I say, I'll do a follow-up video after the season is complete around performance settings, around force feedback, for example. But that being said though, I'm hoping that you enjoyed this video and you found it helpful and informative. I'm changing up the direction of the channel a little bit recently. I started posting more videos daily, but what I'm going to focus on doing now is produce at least one video at minimum per week, and make that one video per week high quality, or as high quality as I can get it anyway. And in between that time, if more videos do pop up, great, but my baseline content plan is to get one video done every week to very high quality. And I'm going to be planning in these next few weeks to return to doing tutorials and guides such as traction control, ABS, turning, and around teaching you as much as possible about being fast on the F1 23 game. With that being said, thank you so much for watching. I've been Brendon Leigh, and I'll catch you in the next video. Ciao, ciao, bye bye.